And you can see once again the raise percentage being 57%. Okay, like you just go bonkers. You just raise so much. You just start attacking like crazy in these situations. Once you see people stabbing these boards where they're really not supposed to.
What's up, guys? My name is Lex Veldhuis and welcome to this last episode, this final episode in this little coaching stretch that I did with Jordan. This is an episode you're not gonna miss because it is a very important topic. Make sure you watch to the end because we're gonna discuss a lot of important situations where we play big blind versus small blind. We're gonna look at situations where I missed raising pre-flop and then also how we play against a small blind stab on the flop if it is a limped pot. Very important, happens a million times a session, so really important that we get into it. If you have any questions, make sure you drop them down below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.
All right, so small blind limps. This is, this stacked up not an unreasonable hand to isolate, so you definitely could have gone after this spot. We're not really going to use suited eights here because the risk of being like limp 3-bet off of them is real. And so this is the way that we get the 8x board coverage in there. Typically, like a lot of these like offsuit 8s, offsuit 7s, 10-8, 10-7, 9-7. A lot of these hands all get on the offsuit side. They do get isolated here, but this could be checked. It's not like it's a bad check. It's a majority check, so it's fine.
Yeah, I usually all the jack 9s, jack 8s, queen 8s, I mix those.
Okay, cool. Yeah, but if you're already doing that, then kind of like we're off to the races. Don't have anything to worry about. And then this is where things get a little bit dicey for you. Now you're going to have to tell me, how do you think about this? Like, I want you to walk me through the system that you're using, however you approach handling these situations currently.
All right. Yeah. So first of all, I would look at board structure, right? Because there are specific boards that I hit or miss more based on the information that I check, which also might influence how much my opponent stabs on it, etc. And I also want to look at capabilities of my hands and playability, right? So like future street. So one thing that immediately stands out here is that I have backdoor straight draws. I have overs to the 4 on a rainbow board. So I think, and it's a 33% pop bet, which is, relatively small. So I kind of feel like I should float here because of those reasons. Yes.
Okay, that's pretty good. I mean, you folded here. So you're gonna fold in every single one of these. So spoiler, like you're never gonna call. So we're not filtered for like which types of hands you folded. We're just filtered for the fact that you folded. Okay, so you said a lot of really good things. Most of what you said was good. The only issue with what you said was that it wasn't precise enough. It's still a little bit too wishy-washy. So I'll just take a run at it with the way that I would have looked at this situation if I was playing. So you did highlight this, but the critical detail about this flop is the 4. Okay, so the jacks are paired, so you can't, even if you have overcards to a jack, it doesn't really matter because if the guy has a jack, you're dead, right? Because he's got trips. So the critical card to evaluate on this board is the 4. It's on any paired board, it'll be the unpaired card. Okay, so we look at the 4 and we say, okay, so how do I build a strategy for defending here, right? Your opponent's betting, 1.23 big blinds into 3.75. So 1.23 divided by 5, which is what's in the middle, is basically just 1/4. All right. So the fold percentage here will orbit 25%. Now that's very basic mathematics. That's not something complicated. Okay. It's just his bet divided by the total pot after his bet. His bet divided by the pot equals 25%, roughly speaking. Okay. So our fold percentage will orbit 25%. If we're looking at a low flop, we'll probably be folding less than 25%. If we're looking at a high card flop, we'll probably be folding closer to 30%. But regardless, the fold percentage will be around 25. Now, the reason why that I'm kind of harping on this number this time is because I tend to tell people to focus on the fold. I tell people to build the fold. Why? Because the fold's 25% and the defend is 75%. That's why. So it's way faster. It's much more economic in terms of time to build the fold. So what I want you to train yourself to do is to recognize where the folds come from very quickly, as opposed to looking at the qualities of your hand and thinking about like which hands you should call with. Yeah. That can get kind of dicey. It's much easier to just be like, okay, what do I need to fold here? Because I need to defend most hands. So what do I need to fold here, right? And on this board, the way that we do that is we can do this on this board very easily. We can do it hierarchically, super fast. We have very few hands that have an undercard to a 4. So we have very few hands that have a deuce or a 3 in them. Therefore, they're the worst hands. Very easy. So anything with no backdoor flush draw, with no backdoor straight draw, that has an undercard to a 4 is your worst hand. So like 7 deuce, 8 deuce, 8-3, 9-3, 10 deuce, 10-3. Those hands, they're your worst hands. Okay? So you're going to start by folding that block of hands. After that block, it's still pretty easy. You're going to move from the deuces and the threes to the next card in the hierarchy, which will be the fives. So then you're going to fold hands like 8-5 and 9-5 and 10-5. And after that, you're starting to get to where it's like a lot of the range. And this is the only part of the system that's a little bit more art than science, is knowing when to stop. Okay, because we're just going to go from the bottom up. We're going to fold the stuff with undercards to the 4. That's the deuce and the 3. After that, we're going to fold the stuff that's just barely has the overcard to the 4. That's going to be the stuff with the 5 or 6. And when do I stop? I don't know. It's hard to tell you. It's hard to tell you. The more you do the exercise, the better you'll get at it, because you'll be like, okay, this feels like around enough. But that's going to be the system you use to identify where the folds come from. And then the thing about 10-8 is that you're not even close to a 5 or 6. So like you just call. So now you can take a look at it.
It's very interesting, because if you would just ask me the question, is 10-8 in the top 75% of your range on this board, it'd be like instant yes.
Sure.
You know?
Nice. Yeah, good. Yeah, that comes from reps. That comes from like just doing it, like looking at some sims, playing a lot.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like it's just like it makes the hand so much easier in like thinking about all these other things.
Yeah,
and you could just ask yourself a simple question, because like this is really like range versus range and bet sizing.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. That's the thing. Like that's the thing about the math, is like you don't have to say that like you know exactly what 25% is. You don't have to know exactly what it is to know that it's super helpful to know that that's what you're trying to accomplish, right? Because if you know that if you don't have a map to what you're trying to do, then it's the game's just impossible. But as soon as you have like, okay, I'm going to try to fold to like 25% here. It's like, okay, well then that's like, I'm going to fold the trashy stuff and call everything else. It's pretty simple. So here's the system in play, right? So this is the solver. This is obviously not me, but offsuit deuces, then offsuit threes, after that offsuit fives, and then offsuit sixes. And the thing is, will be repeated across situations. So we're going to use the exact same system over and over and over again. And the nice thing about this is that it's obviously very useful, blind versus blind, because the ranges are so wide, blind versus blind, that using like trying to memorize sim outputs is like impossible. Okay. But I use the same system, just so everyone knows. I use the exact same system if we are looking at blind versus blind play, or button versus big blind, or button versus cutoff. I do the exact same thing. It's always the same. And then we can't fold any backdoor flush draws. That's the only other caveat. It doesn't affect the 10-8 offsuit that we have, but just as a heads up, we have to defend so much trash here. All the hands are so weak that if we have a backdoor flush draw, with the exception of 7 deuce, we're pretty much not folding. So that'd be the only other thing to point out. But yeah, this was a call, so this is obviously a mistake to a fold. I'm not really going to isolate this hand much, so I think the check's fine. And then we face a 1 BB step, and why don't you walk me through how you think about it?
Okay, so again, it's it's about 1/3. Pop bets is actually a little smaller, so let's say that the full percentage is like 21-22%. We have a backdoor flush draw, so we're not folding.
Sure. Yeah, so obviously we folded, and you're correct. Like the backdoor flush draw will be enough here to pure play. The thing, just to walk yourself through the exercise, right? The unpaired card is the 9, and basically the 9 is high up enough, and the deuce is irrelevant really. But it's whenever the lowest card's a deuce, you basically have to ignore it, because everything has overcards to the deuce, right? So all we're interested in here when we look at this board is the 9, and the worst hands in this range will be double undercards to a 9. So right, so in particular, double undercards to a 9 without 3 to a straight. Okay, so the worst hands in this range will be hands like 8-5 without a backdoor flush draw, 7-5 without a backdoor flush draw, 7-4 without a backdoor flush draw, 7-3 without a backdoor flush draw, etc. But we've got enough of those double unders with no backdoor flush draw that I don't think we want to fold this hand with one. That's the first part. The second part, this is more of an experience thing. All right. So the second thing is, unless your hand is really double unders and total trash, you can't fold this flop. And the reason is your opponent's really not supposed to bet here. Okay. There's really not supposed to be a betting range on this flop. So the small blind has a folding range.
Yeah, and it's deuce X.
Right? And it's deuce X. Yeah, exactly. So the big blind has a very significant asymmetric nut ratio advantage on this board, right? So we have trips and he doesn't. That's the simplistic way of saying that is we have trips and the other guy doesn't. And because we have trips and the other guy doesn't, the other guy shouldn't really do much betting. Okay. The person who has the nuts is the person who generally speaking can do the betting. So that's us. So this person should have checked. The reason that people tend to bet here is because the board looks dry, right? Or it looks like there's not a lot of draws. And it's very easy for someone to overfold this flop if they're not being careful. So a lot of players will try to take advantage of that by stabbing. But against a sophisticated player, this is a pretty big mistake. What ends up happening on a board like this is you only fold probably like 10 to 15%. You fold less than 20 to 25, and you end up raising almost the entire continuing strategy. You can raise almost every single hand in your range. And the reason you can do that is because you'd raise every single deuce for value, and you could raise every single nine because your opponent's range is so weak. So you just end up counterattacking with like an 85% two bet, like basically an 85% flop raise strategy. So this stab's really not advised unless you think your opponents are particularly weak. But again, like the purpose of this stab is to try to catch people overfolding hands like backdoor flush draws.
It'd be great to exploit versus me if you just have the note on me that I do that, that I fold flops in limped small blinds versus big blinds.
Yeah, anybody with a HUD with a fold to c bet stat, if they see that fold to c bet's reasonably high, they'll just switch to a stab strategy on boards that they think people miss. I mean, it's pretty common. So this is another hand that I think we could isolate. It's a reasonable hand to attack with preflop. And this is going to be a pretty good fold on the flop. Obviously, there's not much going on there, so I don't think we need to talk about that one. So how do you think about this?
Okay, so the bet's a little bit bigger. They bet half pot. If I'm not mistaken, that means we have to fold 33%. Is that correct?
That's 100%. That's right.
Okay, yeah. I mean, like I already this is a very simple answer, but it's good to walk through the exercise. But like clearly, this is not a fold. 3 to a straight, backdoor flush draw. Both my cards are overcards to the 6. Jack's overcard to the 8. So this has a lot of redeeming qualities that clearly beats out enough hands to be in the top 66% or 70%, 66% of my range.
Sure. So walk me through where you think the folds come from.
Okay. Anything with a deuce. Anything with a kicker in between the 6 and the 3 that doesn't have a backdoor flush draw. Well, maybe that's not true. I mean, king 4 I probably call, but
so let me jump in real quick. So you'll have some exceptions, right? So the exceptions to that strategy that we're using, one of the exceptions will be high card. So you pointed that out just now, right? There will be some exceptions. It's not like it's always going to just fold every single hand. I mean, you're not going to fold ace high here, for example, necessarily. Yeah. So you're going to have high card exceptions, backdoor flush draw exceptions, 3 to a straight exceptions, and that's pretty much it. If you have a gut shot, obviously, like that hand's not foldable. Even on like a monotone board where people freak out. If the board's like queen 6-5. And you have, with 3 spades, and you have 3 deuces you have to call. Okay, so gut shots will be exceptions, like any kind of straight draw or something. But aside from that, right, aside from those basically 3 exceptions, we can use this rule. So yeah, you're correct. I think if you have like king 4 or something like that, or king 5 or whatever, like it's not obvious that's going to end up being a fold. Certainly ace 4 and ace 5 would be calls. But yeah, this hand's not likely to produce the requisite fold percentage that we would need to get rid of this hand. This hand's pretty good.
Is it possible? Is it an easy click to turn nicknames on or no?
There you go.
Okay.
Eggman.
Yeah. It's just like, okay, I just want to also, it kind of like makes me very motivated to see that because this guy's a reg, and it just makes me very motivated to see that I'm getting exploited by a reg, it makes me a bit mad. So it's good to see. Oh no. Oh, okay. No, never mind. Okay. I can mix it like to a small percentage if we're deep enough, right? Like let's say we're 60 bigs, then I could definitely ISO this hand to like, at a 20% rate or something.
Yeah, I think you'll start isolating this hand when you get out of limp shoving range, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We checked, which is fine. And we folded. So how do you think about this?
Okay, so, our full percentage is about 22%. We're mostly going to be focusing on hands that don't have 3-2 straight, no backdoor flush draws. I actually think this is one of the worst hands we can have, because even like, anything with a 6 is already a gutter. I don't have a backdoor flush draw, so I'm very happy to put this in the bottom of my range and fold it.
Good. Yeah, so this is sort of a classic example of what I was talking about earlier, where it's helpful to try to systemize it so that you can find the worst hands in the range, right? Because the issue is that on this board, there's only one type of hand that doesn't have overcards to a 5 on this board, right? And it's something with a 4 in it, which has an open-ended straight draw. So you can't fold those either. So you can't fold anything with a 4, and you can't fold anything with a 6, because the 6 got a gut shot. So it would make sense for the worst hands in the range to be something with like a 7 or an 8 in them, right? So a hand like, now this hand has a backdoor nut straight draw. So I would say that the worst hand is probably something closer to like 9-7 or 9-8. But this hand's certainly right there, right? And we're going to have a high card defending strategy still. We're still going to be defending like, ace high first. Obviously it's got a gut shot, but then king high and queen high, etc. So the lower down hands are worse hands. Okay? The hands that are further down are worse. So again, hands like 9-7, 9-8, 10-7, 7, 8, maybe. Like these hands look like the worst hands on this board, particularly when they don't have a diamond, right? I think if whereas like the issue is if you just focused on like the qualities of this hand, if you just said like, oh, I have 2 overcards, like I'm gonna call. It's like everything has 2 overcards, so it doesn't help you to find the 25% fold you need to find, right? And I would say that this is again we're looking at a low board, so we're likely to fold much less than that. And because we have 3 low cards, again we have a 3 and a deuce on the board, and this is a board where your opponent probably shouldn't be doing much betting. So in fact, they should. Go ahead.
Is it also because, apart from not having all 3x deuce x, that he also misses like 3 deuce off, 3 4 off? 3 4 off probably calls pre, but that sort of thing.
Yeah, he doesn't have. He probably doesn't have hands like 6 4 off even. Like there's a folding range, and we can pull this. All right, and this is the strategy, and you're gonna see this happen. Like if we can go to.
Oh shit! 4 3 off is not even in there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so this is his flop strategy. He's supposed to check range, but you can see like 6 4 off was missing. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna jump back. So that's ruse. So that's like the AI, and we're going to jump over to regular sims here, and we're going to look at boards with a 3 or deuce on them. So let's just go like 6 3 deuce, whatever. I don't care. Let's go over here, and let's go like this, and let's add a 3 and a deuce as the lowest 2 cards. And we can add it. We can make it like this. That's fine. They can be paired. And you can see the small blind strategy.
Oh, yeah.
Not much betting.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got this filtered for small blind strategy when there's a 3 or a deuce on the flop. And this is the check percentage that should be deployed. Okay. It should be an 89% check with this filtered scenario. And the small blind's supposed to check a lot normally. That's a 63% check. But you can see that, by adding the filter of putting a 3 or a deuce on the 3 and a deuce on the flop, I put both. By adding the filter of putting a 3 and a deuce on the flop, we went from a 63% check normally to an 89% check, 88.5. Okay. So the 3 and the deuce, I just want you guys to know that it's not just like that's the relevance of the 3 and the deuce, right? It does drive the check percentage up very dramatically. Okay. And the reason is because of the absence of the 3 and the deuce here in the small blind's limping range. So this guy's not supposed to bet. So we do have ruse, which is nice. And so, this range is obviously scuffed, and we can just very simply force this to just we can just take the check away, because typically what I would assume is if a player bets in a situation where there's a 0% bet, like are they betting half their range? Are they betting all of their range? I don't know, but I mean, like it's a reason, like it's a nice model to look at to just see, okay, what happens if this guy bets the entire range? Now, Lex, what do you think the fold percentage is going to be? And what is maybe some of the guys in the audience? They can also, you guys can also guess. What do you guys think the fold percentage will be on this board?
If they bet their entire range.
If they're betting their entire range, yeah. So switch things up.
I would say 0. Maybe I should have waited.
No,
I don't know. I get so many things wrong during coaching. Maybe people are like, okay, so it's not 0.
Nah, that's fine. I don't know what the answer is, by the way. I have no idea, but I'm going to guess it's definitely not 25, right? So if it was 25 normally, I would say something like 10. You'll probably still fold like the absolute worst hands in the range. That would be the strategy that I would adopt, but I wouldn't say 0. Oh, it's 0. Lex beat me.
Hey!
So it is 0. We don't fold anything. That's crazy. We don't fold anything if they bet this board, or they're not supposed to. So yeah, nuts. So 7-8 becomes like pure raise.
This is like, okay, so we have hands that can't do anything. We're gonna pure raise those as the bottom of a range bluffs. We're gonna float with anything that resembles equity.
Yeah, savage. Yeah, pure raise this whole block. But yeah, you end up with like a 53% raise, right? So you can be like kind of bonkers aggressive when you see these stabs in these inappropriate situations. And one of like the hallmarks of an inappropriate bet is when you see like 3 and a deuce on the flop, right? If you see a 3 and a deuce on the flop, the other guy's probably not supposed to be betting. If the board's really good for 3x or 2x, like the 3 is paired or the 2 is paired, probably supposed to be checking range. If you see him stabbing, we can actually go back. We can take a look. We looked at like some board like 9 deuce deuce or something earlier, and we can do the same exercise. So this is another board that's really good for 2x. We expect it to produce a range check here. So it does produce a range check, and we can take the check option away, force the guy to stab, because a lot of people stabbed this flop. I think Lex had 8-5 of hearts on this board, and he folded. Okay, so now we've got the forced stab here. Again, I'm still going to handicap something like a 5 to 10% fold. Okay, it's 3.5. It's, once again, almost no fold. And you can see once again the raise percentage being 57%. Okay, like you just go bonkers. You just raise so much you just start attacking like crazy in these situations. Once you see people stabbing these boards where they're just really not supposed to. Oh, that's gonna be a rough one. Go ahead though, you're up.
Ooh. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I have a backdoor flush draw, and I have 2 overcards to the 4. Like this is pretty. Because I think that 9-3 of clubs, right, would even be a call, and the 5 makes it so infinitely much better.
Yeah, so that's correct, right? Anything with a 3 or a deuce in it's going to be rougher, right? But if you have 9-3 of clubs, it's probably still a call. Certainly, if you have like 9 deuce with like the 2 of hearts, that's probably a fold, right? 9-3 with the 3 of hearts, that's probably a fold. We can check that, but I would assume that that's going to be the case. That the so within a given within a hand, you can organize the flush draw by high card flush draw versus low card flush draw. Okay, so it's like basically a subsystem of defending your suited hands. And so you could say like, okay, that if I have 9-2 offsuit, well, there's 9-2 offsuit with the 9 of hearts, and there's 9-2 offsuit with the 2 of hearts. Which one do I have, right? 9-2 offsuit with the 9 of hearts is a much stronger hand than 9-2 offsuit with the 2 of hearts. And so I would argue that you'd probably, like, it's close enough that you probably still want to fold 9-2 offsuit with the 2 of hearts, or 9-3 offsuit with the 3 of hearts. But yeah, 9-5 of clubs here is going to be pure calls. Very easy, right? You have double overs to the 4 plus the backdoor flush draw. His hand's not foldable.
Can I ask you
Yep.
on that board, right? So you have 10-4 with 2 hearts. How do you rate 9-5 of clubs with the backdoor flush draw to 9-5 with just the 9 of hearts? So they both need 2 flush cards to come, right? Like, how do you rate those in terms of, are they exactly the same in your head, or do you give the advantage to one of them?
So I think from like a playability perspective, it depends on the positions. So I think blind versus blind, you typically see that the 2 clubs are typically better. So the two clubs down will typically be more resilient. I don't know why that's the case. I think that might have to do with like board coverage potentially or something. But I'm not really sure. But I know just through experience, without logic, just through exposure, to be biased towards saying that it's 2 clubs. Now the reason why this is kind of difficult is because if you were to evaluate big blind versus button, for example, in a single raised pot facing a c-bet, you would prefer the heart. Okay, so if you have like, you know, for example, especially if it's a high card, right? So like you would prefer to have like queen deuce with the queen of hearts rather than like queen deuce of clubs, for example. That's typically going to be most true around like check raising, and you know the logic that I use there would be that the blocker to the front door flush draw is really important because you increase the fold percentage more significantly. But yeah, I mean, here I would say that it's going to end up being clubs. Typically, that's going to be how it works. So like 9-5 of clubs here is pure play, and it's worth about 8 big blinds. And 9-5 offsuit with the 9 of hearts here is worth about 3 to 9 big blinds. But they're both pure plays. You can see that the low card heart, which is the system I introduced a second ago, is pure folding. So 9-5 offsuit with the 5 of hearts, that's a fold. So it's only 9-5 offsuit with the high card heart, 9-5 offsuit with the 9 of hearts, right? Here you can see 9-3 offsuit, same kind of idea. And you can contrast 9-3 offsuit with the 9 of hearts, which is basically worth 0. But if you aggregate this whole block, it's worth maybe, you know, slightly less than 0 because we have a version that's almost pure fold. But if you look at 9-3 of clubs, that's pure play, and it's worth 2. So 9-3 of clubs is beating out 9-3 offsuit with the 9 of hearts. Okay. And again, I kind of know that just from reps, right? Like but I don't have a great answer for you as to why. I just know that, like, generally speaking, I prefer clubs.
Yeah.
Most of the time I know why, but this is not one of those examples. So unfortunately, but this is pure call. So we don't want to fold here. Okay. So how do you think about this?
Ooh, tough one. This is probably like a 30% fold, maybe a little bit higher with high cards in there. But let's say 33% fold. Sorry, I think actually closer to 40. Yeah, I think actually a little bit towards 40. But anyway,
so hold on, let me just interrupt. So why do you think it's closer to 40% fold? I just want to know why you're saying.
Because just because I'm just trying to sort of like wing the math.
Sure. So it's 1 over 3.75, which is pretty much 1 over 4. So that'd be like, you know, 27.5, 28%.
Oh
like
shit! Yeah, of course I forgot total pot.
Yeah, and then the fold percentage will be, like, to your point, it might be a little bit higher than that because we're looking at a high card flop. So if we're looking at low card flops, you guys saw, right? If we forced the guy to bet on low card flops, the fold percentage was 0. Can't get much lower than that. So if you're looking at low card flops, like, oftentimes you want to be kind of hesitant to fold too much, even close to 25. But if you're looking at high card flops, very much the case that you're going to be folding higher percentages. Now you can keep going. I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page.
Yeah. So I think that then we have to organize. You know, we have to think about backdoor flush draws. We have to think about 3-2 straight. I think that there are just simply enough hands that are more dog shit than this. You know, anything with a deuce, but also hands like 5-7, 9-5 off, like 8-5 off, 8-4 off, all that stuff that doesn't have spades or a single diamond in it. And then you have low card diamonds that I will probably still prefer this hand to, you know. I think having an overcard to the queen and the jack is pretty viable, overcard to the board. So I think this definitely makes it in there.
So I totally agree with everything you said, though. So we've got to evaluate. So first of all, the critical detail here is that you have actually an overcard to a queen and a jack, right? So again, if you're really trying to map to the hands that are trash, most of your range here is going to be stuck between a jack and a 3, obviously, right? So you're going to have the stone bottom of the range, and that's going to be the stuff with a deuce in it. So that's going to be what I would basically call an over-under, right? So you've got like 6 deuce, 7 deuce, 8 deuce. Those are the worst hands, right? Then you've got the stuff with the sandwich between the jack and the 3, most of your range. And some of that stuff's going to have a diamond. It's going to have to be played. Some of that stuff's going to have a straight draw or something. It's going to have to be played. But very rarely do you actually have overcards to a queen, right? It's only going to be king and ace high hands. And then when you have overcards to a queen, it's going to be also like you also have overcard to the 3. So I would pure play this. Would I be like surprised if there's a modest fold percentage? No, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a low fold percentage, but I would have pure played this one.
Okay, yeah. Hey, by the way, Pentaculator in chat earlier, a few lines back, he's a good regular that I play against quite a bit.
Yeah. He works with me. Yeah.
He makes a good point. So about that 1-card flush as opposed to like the 2-card flush backdoor flush draw, he's saying like for bluffing having a 1-card backdoor flush was good since we can actually represent the mate flush when we bet on the third heart. And then sometimes I feel like my perception of that, adding on to that, is that when you have the actual 2-card backdoor flush draw, you're also blocking where their folds come from.
Are you talking about blind versus big blind? Because the 2-card backdoor flush draw is more of the play, is worth more money, blind versus blind. It's not worth less. So that's an argument for it being worth more. All right, that's an argument for the 1-card flush draws being worth more. That's an argument for the 1-card flush draws having advantages. And like I said, that is how it works. Button versus big blind, for example.
Yeah. I think that's what that was referring to.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I would agree with that. Like that's the way that I think about it.
Interesting.
The issue is it doesn't work that way. Blind versus blind. So right, and like if you have a theory and then you have something that's like kind of on the other side of that says that that's not how it works, and it gets much more challenging, right? You can't just pick which when to apply the logic and when not to apply it. It has to be consistent. So yeah, that's why I said I don't know. I mean, but I don't disagree with him that those are some advantages around having like the heart, for example, in the previous example, as opposed to the clubs.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't seem to work that way, blind versus blind.
Okay.
It's all trying to justify solver outputs with human brains. It's hard. It's super hard. But it's more than trying to justify. It's trying to be predictive, right? Like what we're trying to do really is we're trying to have strategies we can deploy on a consistent basis that will get us very, proximate or close to the same way that a solver would play if it was in the same situation, right? So it's not just justifying it. You're trying to like predict the way that a solver would behave almost, right? All right. So anyway, so here, yeah, pure play. I wouldn't fold this. All right. So I think we can maybe wrap this one here, and I'll see you again tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure. You're a legend, bro. Thank you so much.
No worries, dude. Yeah. Look forward to tomorrow, and I'll see you soon.
All right. See you soon.
All right. Cheers. Thanks, guys. Bye.
What a fucking legend. Wow. That's crazy.